we are meeting immediate needs, but what are we doing really to think about changing conditions for the future and also more preventative work, which is really important. And that's the role. Government really can't, they're not funded to do that. And so like, how do we as a community think about, wouldn't it be wonderful we could help families before it becomes a crisis? And also, like, what are we doing as a region to change the conditions so that all children have the same opportunities and all families have the same opportunities?
I am joined now by the President and CEO of the United Way of Greater Cincinnati, Moira Weir, joining us today. Moira, I really appreciate you having time to come in to talk about your organization. You guys do so much work, and I wanted to start off by asking you, I looked up a little bit about you. You've got your BA in a business with a focus in finance. You got your MBA from Thomas More, but you're running a monstrous nonprofit. How does that sort of educational background influence the way that you're running a group like United Way of Greater Cincinnati?
So first of all, thank you for having me. Yeah. I'm excited, but I also have a master's in social work.
So, we're going to get to that.
Oh, okay. So that, I think, that combination has really helped me. But I would say from my business background, I mean, I always tell folks, it's a business. We have to run it like a business in terms of we're delivering great work, but it's always important to make sure we have the same business principles. Like, are we efficient? Are we making sure that we're meeting the needs of our consumer, our families? So I think it's helped me kind of balance both the mission and the heart with that we still have to be accountable and fiscally responsible.
Yeah, does that sort of business background that you've got influence maybe some strategic decisions that you make as the head of the organization?
All the time. I mean, I feel like they're also connected, and so we have to always make sure. I mean, it's easy to get pulled into a lot of different directions when you're doing this kind of work, and also to say, well, we have to stay focused, and we have to remember, like, what's our, mission creep happens all the time. Yeah. So stay focused and also be willing to readjust your strategies based on what the needs are. And always thinking, obviously families are our center of what we do, but also are we fiscally responsible, because we want to be there for the long term. I mean, you mentioned in the beginning that we've been there over 100 years, so we want to be here for another 100 years. And that requires delivering a good mission, but also being fiscally responsible.
Yeah, I'm curious about your sort of take on being at the head of an organization, the stewardship of such a long-running organization, what that's like for you. And then also you talk about the financial aspect, $40 million last year, and knowing how to make adjustments when need be. I mean, you're trying to turn the wheel on a really big ship. Is all that, I mean, how do you balance all that?
So first of all, I feel like it's an honor to be in this role, because I get to do something I personally am passionate about. Coming to this role from Job and Family Services, our budget was like $2.4 billion. So it was, but it wasn't as amenable to move. Yeah. But what is awesome about this opportunity is we really let community help drive the end result in terms of what the needs are. So being nimble, but also making sure that we're, covering the needs, but also thinking about how are we solving for bigger issues. So I have a great team. I work with a lot of awesome people. I have a great board, and all these people, I mean, I think I have all these strategic partners that help, everybody's got a great perspective, and then how we bring all that together to make sure we stay focused. And then we really have tried to adopt more of a framework of strategy so that we can pivot. Now, our pillars have stayed the same, which you mentioned. Thank you for mentioning those. Sure. But housing continues to be a challenge for all of our families, financial empowerment, and that's more than just survival. It's like, how am I helping every individual improve their financial stability, whatever they would like, and educational success. I mean, I always say we want everybody in this region to have the same opportunities to reach their fullest potential, whether you're a kindergartner starting school or you're an 8th grader or a rising senior. We want you to stay in school, meet your milestones, and then think about all the opportunities when you graduate.
Yeah, I can't help but get a little smile on my face when I think about that bit that I found with working with the Dolly Parton Library and making sure little kids get books. I think that is that's just one little piece of such a really heartwarming set of work that you guys are doing. The idea of change too, sort of maybe changing some systems within the organization, as going from try to get funding and then work for that to plug it in to help people, versus trying to change systems themselves and make sure that maybe we set up a system in society where people are more likely to have success. That's a really big ask.
Yeah. So, I mean, you said it really well. I mean, the number one thing is we want to make sure people know their immediate needs. So, like, where am I going to sleep? Do I have enough food? But then also thinking about how are we changing conditions long term, so we don't see as a worker, child welfare worker, I would see generations of poverty in a household. Well, what are we doing to change that? Right. So making sure that children have all the tools that they need so they can be successful in school. So not only meeting their immediate need to get an education, but then setting them up for lifetime employment. Housing stability is critical. If we know that if people don't have stable housing, they don't go to work and kids don't go to school. So first of all, we want to stabilize, like you have a place to sleep tonight, but then what are we doing long term for so that communities can be strong and whole, and we don't have a lot of vacant buildings, we don't have a lot of movement. So we're always looking at ways we can stabilize. And then it's like financial empowerment. I mean, we want to be able to provide for our families. And how do we do that and then give families the resources to improve their economic situation if they want to, whether it's helping them get connected to an employer to increase training opportunities. But, you mentioned this. So we also, we do our own programming, so 211 and other things like housing stability, but we partner with so many organizations because I like to say, I like to choose who I get to work with, and so we want families to choose who they work with, and that requires us opening our arms to say who all is available. And so we work with over 400 partners. Not one of us can do this work alone, and it really requires all of us to come together. I like to say, I have lots going on in my household, right? So it's not one solution, right. It's multiple solutions and multiple organizations that help me achieve the goals that I want for my family. Well,
and there's such an upshot to the concept of partnering with all these different organizations, and a rising tide raises all boats, and you get to maybe see some innovations and ideas that maybe a smaller outfit or a different group came up with that never would have crossed your path otherwise.
That's exactly right, and we really have shifted our investment funding to be how do we co-create solutions together? What can we learn from each other? And then what's scalable? So to your point, there could be an organization that nobody really knows about that's doing awesome work. How do we elevate that and then share those learnings so that we can scale it so lots of families can have that same opportunity?
Something that the United Way of Greater Cincinnati is really good about is telling the story of people who were impacted by your work. Mm-hmm. And, one of the programs you just mentioned, I think you did, Backpacks for Success is a program you guys have going on right now where it's being able to make sure that kids have the supplies they need. School's coming up soon. And in terms of people telling their stories, I've been told that you like to interact with folks yourself, not just have their stories get put on the internet to have videos that talk about things, but you like to get in there and talk to people. How important is that for you from a leadership perspective of hearing these people's stories?
It's huge. I mean, I think that's the social worker in me. I love to be in community. I feel like that's where I'm most comfortable is in the community, and I love to talk to families. And so right now we're doing the backpack distribution. So first of all, we had so many awesome corporate partners that leaned in and provided us backpacks, whether they gave us the dollars to go out and purchase them or their teams put them together. So, we have over 3,500 backpacks this year. And if you just think about we've been the last few Saturdays, because school will be here before and distributing them. And to see, imagine a child coming up, they get to pick out the backpack that they want, the color they want, they have what they have. We know that families right now are feeling really stretched, and I was shocked at this. An average school supply per child on average is about $400. We know parents go in debt over that. If you have 4 children and you're already stretched. So number one, I'd like to hand these backpacks out. The kids are so excited. You get to say, have a great year, and they're excited, and they have the color they want, and they just have some confidence. But then equally important is almost seeing the relief of a parent or a caregiver to say, I don't have to worry about that now. That's an expense that I don't have to worry about. And we really want to set up our children and families for success. And so in these distributions, it's fun to see the kids, but also oftentimes they can get their hair cut. They can talk to other vendors, talk about medical care. There's lots of opportunities. So it's a learning place too, and also a resource place. So it's been fun. I love it.
And and certainly being able to have a kid get the backpack, I don't want to say that it's not just a handout, but the idea too that it's an investment, and the idea that maybe that kid gets that set of school supplies, then they don't have to stress out about not having a pencil or crayons when it comes time to do something at school. They've got what they need, and that's an investment in that child being able to spring forward and really do something.
And everything's brand new, so that's awesome. So they have all new school supplies, a brand new backpack, and to see the joy and the excitement, and then just to say to every child, have a great year, enjoy that. So
I think that's very
it's fun.
sweet. In terms of other programs you guys have, the 211 helpline, which is huge, which I believe Governor DeWine recently announced a statewide expansion for. So now anybody anywhere in Ohio, if they need help for any variety of reasons, we talked about the 3 different pillars of education and financial empowerment and housing. Anybody that needs help in just about any category can dial 211 and get the help on that. That's a huge offering for people.
It's a huge community asset, and I encourage anyone can call. You can call 211. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I have, like, if you're caring for a family member and you need help, anyone can call 241 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. 211 is a United Way number. It's actually 98% of the country is covered by that, and we have some spots in Canada. But so if you call and you're not in our area, we service 9 counties, we can connect you to the right 211. But what the awesome part about 211 is it's not only as you get to talk to a human being and we're navigating and collecting information about you if you're willing to provide it to connect you to resources, whether it's housing, childcare, summer activities, senior care. We're collecting that information, but it also tells us a little bit what's happening in the region. So we can populate that and say, gosh, we're noticing that there's perhaps not enough food pantries in this region, or we have a lot here and not as much there. So we're always collecting that data and using it to help us lift up what's missing, what do we need to adjust for. And then if you happen to call back like 6 months later, I can say, oh, you know, how did it go with X? You know, we can ask you some questions and we're populating information. Oh, I hear some small children in the background. Is there anything you need with them with services? So we're always trying to be helpful. And then we do that closed loop referral to make sure that you've got what you need. And it really takes the burden off of, you know, I mentioned I was a social worker and I'm trying to remember all the resources. Anybody, so we have a lot of providers, social workers, like they can jump on our website and see what's available, and then they have accurate information that's up to date. Here are the hours of this organization. They don't have a wait list, or they do have a wait list. And so we're always curating that to make sure there's nothing worse if you're stressed out trying to figure out where to get food and you get sent to 2 places that didn't have food.
Yeah.
We want that to be easy for families.
Or let alone dialing a number and having to go through some robotic phone tree, like having a human being that you can talk to that is dialed in and knows how to help. And then with this data-driven sort of solutions that you guys have, you know where the need is going to be. So when it comes time for things like the campaign, which is going on again or will be launching soon, it's not just a matter of, hey, we want to help with a capital H in a very broad sense. There's very specific ideas, and you know how to target where the solution is needed. That's got to play a tremendous role in your work, going out and talking with, there's so many corporate partners in this city. I think one of my favorite things about this city is the way that different businesses and companies step up to really help and participate and back organizations like the United Way. That's got to be a huge relief for you.
It is, and we're lucky. I mean, there's corporate partners, there's faith-based partners, so many partners. And the other great thing too now with 211, that's a recent development, we're connecting with the healthcare system. So like we can connect families as they're leaving to say, what are the resources you need at your fingertips in certain neighborhoods. So we really are trying to make sure it's available to everybody.
Talking about the campaign, you just recently announced that Lee Fox, who is the CEO of Altafiber, is the new chair of the campaign for this year. And yeah, talking about that must be you guys at the maybe at the announcement. I mean, seriously, what is that like? You've got such a background in knowing the need in this area, and then being able to connect with corporate folks like this to really back things. That's a really special thing, right? That doesn't happen in a lot of other cities.
No, we're lucky. I mean, yeah, Lee's awesome. He's like diving right in, but it really, to your point, shows the commitment of our community, of our company leaders, our CEOs in this region are really committed to making sure we have a thriving region. And Lee also is on our board and is super excited and just has been diving in, understanding everything. He's such a great ambassador for the work that we're doing, as well as he loves 211. But you know, we've had Procter & Gamble lead it, we've had Fifth Third, and we've had all the big companies lead these campaigns, and we've had Christ Hospital, Children's Hospital. I mean, so we're super lucky. And it's great partnerships, and it's great opportunity just to connect and share, and also remind people like what's happening in our neighborhoods, what's happening in our communities, and how we share that information. And I like to always lead with, we're an impact organization first, and then we fundraise against that. But most importantly, we have to make sure that we are delivering and that we exist on behalf of community. I think, you know, long term it would be great if we put ourselves out of business because communities had everything they needed in their communities with their families, but we probably have a little bit ways to go before that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, there's always a need, but trying to lessen the severity of that need. And I think because of all the work that you guys do and what a tremendous organization it is, and the millions of dollars, the thousands of people, the thousands of volunteers, you guys really cast a very wide net to help folks a lot. We have to take a break. We've got more with Moira Weir, the president and CEO of United Way of Greater Cincinnati. Going to talk about her specific journey. She knows what she's talking about when she's talking about the need. There's a lot of experience there. Now's the part where we shift a little bit and talk about you, which I think is going to be really interesting because you are the head of United Way of Greater Cincinnati. You've been doing this for about 6 years, and we'll get into your start in things, but coming up to it, you spent quite a bit of time, 20 plus years, at Hamilton County Job and Family Services. So the idea of having a really dialed in understanding of the needs of this area, that's got to be a tremendous asset. It's
been a wonderful journey. I mean, I really feel like I've learned so much, and it really helped prepare me for this role even more, but also, you know, I loved that role and I loved being in that position, but it also started to think about, like, we are meeting immediate needs, but what are we doing really to think about changing conditions for the future, and also more preventative work, which is really important. And that's the role. Government really can't, they're not funded to do that. Right. And so, like, how do we as a community think about, wouldn't it be wonderful we could help families before it becomes a crisis? And also, like, what are we doing as a region to change the conditions so that all children have the same opportunities and all families have the same opportunities? Well, and that's discussing the idea of trying to change the systems that are in place to really have fertile ground for kids to thrive in. We talked about the homeless, or the housing element of what you guys do. The idea of keeping a family from becoming unhoused versus the expense of getting them back into a house. That's a night and day difference as far as how much something costs. It is. I mean, the data suggests that if you can prevent an eviction, you're saving money for like more than $3,000 to $4,000. Like, the landlord doesn't have to have expenses of the court hearing. You know, all the things that go. Then you have to evict somebody. And then just for a family, I mean, that one incident can set a family back years. And not only the financial setback, but the trauma. I mean, imagine, like, coming home and not having a place to sleep. So really, we try to really, first of all, let's stabilize the situation. The more we know about it up ahead of time, like if we know that you're starting to struggle, I mean, sometimes it could be just one thing. Like, I was sick and I missed 3 days of work, or my child had to go to the doctor and I had to pay the doctor fee and the medical bill, and now I'm behind. So it's often one thing, and then it just kind of like gets out of control. And so how do we prevent that? And keeping people in their homes is important, making sure that they're in income-aligned housing, that it's affordable, and or people on a fixed income, making sure that they can stay in their home. And, you know, me being able to pass my home to my child is an opportunity to create generational wealth. And so how do we help families do that in ways that, you know, that they are able to say, instead of selling to maybe an out-of-town landlord, what if I could pass my home to my children, and now they have something to start to build wealth? Yeah, and these are all things that the United Way thinks about and plans for, and has programs in partnership with so many other people about. We talked about your business background, and I'm curious about, it's my understanding that you had a sort of a change in your life that involved some kind of mentorship that sort of changed your personal plan, what you thought you were going to do that led to what you're doing now. What was that change? So as you mentioned, I had a business background, and I was working for a real estate development company, imagine that, and I became a mentor to a foster child. And her name is Cleo. She allows me to say that. And really meeting Cleo, loving Cleo, changed everything for me. And it really made me eventually make a career change. I tried to get into social work, but I didn't obviously have the degree to do that. So I ended up going back to get my master's in social work, and then became a child welfare worker because of my experience with Cleo. And, you know, when I say that, Cleo had a mom who cared deeply for her, but was struggling with some mental health and addiction. And she had siblings, and so often found herself she was in foster care, and not often with her siblings. And just watching the trauma of not seeing her mom, who was trying to do everything, but was having a hard time, and then also not seeing her siblings, just had a huge impact on me. And just seeing how the systems weren't, from my perspective, weren't always working on behalf of her and her family. And it's not a criticism, it just was hard, and I became really passionate about it. And my mom said one day, well, then do something about it. So,
Thanks, Mom.
I know. Well, but it ended up, I mean, I'm grateful for that because it changed my not only career path, but I would say I was so lucky to do something that I both care personally about and professionally, and to love what you do is a blessing. Yeah. And I really believe that my whole journey, I mean, all these different families, Cleo being the first, has hopefully made me a better person and a stronger person in terms of how I approach community. And really, it's all about what the community wants and how do I listen to the voices of community. Just like you want to have agents, you want to decide what's right for you and your family. Same with me, I want to do that with families. And so how do we use that information? But as well, we have to look at the data. We have to look at what we're accomplishing. So it's a both and. And then to me, you just approach the systems and the families in a much more holistic manner with a lot of grace and humility. Early on as a child welfare worker, I used to think, I knew it was right.
Right.
And so quickly I realized I had no idea it was right. I was a child welfare worker before I was a parent, imagine that. And of course, as soon as I had my son, it even taught me more about, whoa, it's tough,
But to all those things, it led to you having a really dialed in practical understanding. That's got to be tremendously helpful.
And I just think, watching in this, again, I had a great honor to be being a social worker is just an amazing job, and I think social workers don't get enough credit.
Yeah.
And also, how does that help inform me to talk about the challenges of families, but also it taught me a lot just about how complex things are. We're all, lots of things happening. So it really, hopefully, has contributed to making sure that the work that we do is meeting the needs of community, and that we're being open, and that we're learning, and that long-term will solve that. I mean, Cleo, sadly, ended up aging out of foster care. I mean, she never found a home. Her mom ultimately lost custody of her, and she struggles to this day, and she has several children. Some are now in foster care. Mm-hmm. And so that's how do we stop that from happening? Because she's a wonderful human being who cares deeply about her children. And that was my experience. Most parents care deeply. They just need help, and we shouldn't judge them. And we have to challenge our own. We all have narratives, we all have biases.
Preconceived notions.
Yeah, and so that's something I work on every day. And being a social worker really helped, I think, stretch me in that way, and hopefully in a very positive way.
Speaking of being stretched when it comes to a job that you're doing, you came into this position with the United Way of Greater Cincinnati in March of 2020, quite possibly at a time when the need could not have been greater. How do you even not lose your mind and break out into a cold sweat every time you hear that date, just knowing the way that all the dominoes fell and the whole world got sick, and now you are in the driver's seat of an organization that is trying to help people when the need was maybe greater than it's ever been?
Yeah, I think back, wasn't an odd time for all of us. I mean, really, when we think about it. So I started March 16th.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the night before the restaurant shut down. And I will tell you the first thing I thought about when restaurants were closing was, oh my goodness, all those families that were depending on those dollars to pay for childcare, buy diapers, food. What are they going to do?
Pay their rent, and
the
number of working families that are just one paycheck away from poverty.
Yeah, so it really was. I mean, I didn't really think about it. It was just in my being a child welfare, you jump in and get things done like you had to. So and I worked with a great team. We just, arm in arm, locked arm, and said, what can we do? The community was awesome. I think every business, everybody was rethinking, how do I operate? What do we do? And actually that gave us the proof points that really let us invest and expand in 211, because when I arrived at United Way, I was if I had known about 211 at my other role, I would have been sending so many families here, because so many families get pulled into the public sector. And I don't mean that in a bad way, that didn't need that. They just needed a quick intervention. And so 211 is that quick intervention. And how do we help them meet their needs? So it really gave us the confidence and the proof point to really expand that service. But I think it also gave us the opportunity, like every business, to say, let's rip the Band-Aid off and just go all in and try something different. And how do we do that? And that's when I believe we really became laser focused on being an impact organization first, and that we would drive the fundraising to support the things that the community needs, and what is the community needs telling us, and how do we support that?
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle. We don't have too much longer yet. I want to get into with you. Are there any other? Do you have any events coming up that people should be aware of? We've talked about the Backpacks for Success. Certainly, 211 is a 24/7 availability. Are there any events on the horizon for you guys?
We're still distributing the backpacks. We always have tax prep going on, meaning like how are we helping families with it? People don't. That sounds boring, but you're completing your taxes, if you're 200, 300, 400% of poverty is a huge economic driver. So we're always looking for volunteers for that, as well as letting families know it's an opportunity that's available. We know that is a one-time ability to change somebody's economic mobility when they get the refund. And last year we brought in over $11 million in tax refunds for this region.
Huge.
And that's purchasing power. Like that's money in your pocket. And so how do we use that to say, maybe you can open up a child savings account. Maybe you can think about paying off that debt or thinking about home ownership. So, and filing fees are so expensive. And we saved over $2 million with filing fees. Actually, when I was looking at the data a couple of weeks ago, I think since 2003, we brought in $258 million in tax refunds to this region.
That's tremendous.
So,
and that's regular folks.
That's regular
people have maybe a picture of a really impoverished situation.
It's mostly working families that are in, and that the tax credits that come, like the child tax credit. So that's always going on. Obviously, 211. We have our big Brighter Tomorrow event coming up in October, which is tied into Blink, which is so exciting. And that's where we really highlight some of the work that we're doing really around the educational success and that cradle to career concept. So that's coming up and that's exciting. There's always something going on. Soon we'll be doing, around the holidays, we do an Adopt a Family. So it's really targeted towards more guardian caregivers, just because we know families are strapped around the holidays in particular. So we have lots of great donors that, every family that's part of our network gets, some supplies, gifts, whatever they would like around that time of year. So it takes the burden off of families financially.
There's a ton.
There's a ton.
There's a ton. There's a ton of programs that the United Way does, and then also just volunteering opportunities with all the business owners and the folks that maybe watch this show that have a business, and maybe there's an organization that they're looking to support. Being able to volunteer your time is a huge part.
That's a great. Volunteers are the backbone of a lot of what we do, and I also think volunteering gets you connected to community. So many companies. We just finished a volunteer event at Western Southern where they were doing an impact volunteer event. So there's lots of ways that you can get involved. It's a great way to do team building. With your whether you want to put backpacks together, or we have like hygiene kits we put together for families. Those are expensive. Dental kits, like things that are costly for families that we can we have teams to do volunteer, and then we go distribute them. So it's really awesome. There's
a lot of opportunity out there. United Way of Greater Cincinnati, a ton of opportunity to help, and a big need that's always there. Moira Weir, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.